Good evening, friends and fellow necromancers. My name is Count Patofi, at your service. And tonight's episode of Collinsport After Dark is brought to you by me and my new product, Count Patofi's improved anti-werewolf spray. Now with essence of hand. Yes, no longer do you have to carry around some clunky pistol loaded with silver bullets or, an unfashionable pentagram around your neck. Now, a simple spray will take care of any werewolf problem you have. It's very simple to operate, like this. Let it sting, you fool! You put the sprayer on backwards again. Cut! 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 Is it running? Record. Oh, hello. So, in summary, tonight's broadcast of episode 6 of Collinsport After Dark is presented to you by Count Patofi's improved anti-werewolf spray. Now, with essence of hand. Welcome to Collinsport After Dark. This is a Dark Shadows podcast with your host, Alan Gallant, and of course the whole host of things that go bump in the night. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the latest episode of Collinsport After Dark.
This is an ABC color presentation.
See if this stuff works. Put it out! People in this here inn are trying to sleep. Of course, that wouldn't be me now, would it? Welcome to another podcast of Collinsport After Dark. This is going to be our 6th installment here, and the first one after attending the Dark Shadows Remembrance Gathering in Burbank, California on the 5th and 6th of July, the day after my 64th birthday. When I get old, oh, you don't want to hear that. Okay. Anyway, I don't think this stuff works very well. Tonight's podcast is going to be about, I've got I got this little script here, episode 522 of Dark Shadows. It is actually the first complete episode in which Nicholas Blair is established on the show. And the VTR of this show, or the videotape recording of the show, is on June 16th, 1968. It aired on Tuesday, June 25th, 1968. And, this is my lovely copy, a few of my notes here over here on the other side. And I really want to go through bits and pieces of this script to show you how the final product is developed after the script is written. Now, one thing you have to understand, if you don't already, so be patient if you already know and heard of this. One thing you got to know is that the final script, as given to the director and the producer and the assistant producer and all these other people isn't really the final script. What happens a day or two before the script is going to be recorded, normally the night before, the whole cast gets together with the director and the producer, production assistant, and the stage manager, and all that, and they read the script out. Now, if that script happens to be a little short, or most likely a little long, cuts or adjustments have to be made. And so that's what happens. Lines might be added to, cut away, changed in order to make sense out of things. When people say that, he wouldn't say that there, or something like that. So what happens is they make all these cuts and adjustments, and then they come in the next day, haven't had the scripts all reprinted out and so on, and maybe some more cuts are going to be needed to be made. But then the actors take the new scripts after they've rehearsed them in their head, that's called memorizing the lines. That's what the actors tell me anyway. And then they might have to change them again last minute, some of them. And this happened more often than not in order to get it down into that 22-minute, 23-minute area that the full-length show was going to have to be. Plus making sense out of some things that maybe the writers forgot about and didn't write in or something like that. So once this process is all done, of course, it goes to tape. The thing is, the scripts oftentimes have these alterations not in them. Okay, some alterations may have been already made that we don't know about, but last minute changes, of course, wouldn't be put into this final script draft. So what would happen is the actors would take their pens and pencils and they'd cross things out or change the line and then go scurrying off to the makeup man or whatever with their scripts, trying to learn the new changes in a matter of a couple of hours before they had to go down and actually start rehearsing on the floor. A lot of times this would be happening on the fly because blocking would be happening almost immediately as soon as they got to the studio that day. So if you can well imagine, things could get a little bit hectic, a little crazy. And if you were somebody like Jonathan Frid, who had a little difficulty learning lines in the first place, it could make you want to tear your hair out. Because by the time he wanted to tear his hair out, it's all plastered down in spike bangs and so on, so he couldn't touch it anyway. Anyway, let me show you the entire script here, page by page, with cuts that I put in. You can stop tape, so to speak, here on YouTube and so on if you want to look more closely at it. But I'm going to go through some of the more obvious changes that they did after we sort of roll through the script here. So, Mr. Music, whenever you're ready, let's go. You're probably going to want to watch these pages on a laptop or a desktop or something with a larger screen so that you can read the text and see the edits. And now, here we go. Well, I hope you enjoyed that little musical foray into the script. The script's about 45 pages long with two front piece pages, and which describe the schedule and the cast list and what each act is comprised of. Um, so we got that out of the way. Before we go on and take a sampling of some of the changes that were made from the script as opposed to what happened in the actual show, I'd like to give a shout out to some folks that I saw this past weekend of July 5th and 6th at the Airport Marriott in Burbank, California. Obviously, there was a contingency of Dark Shadows actors, most of which I met and had a chance to at least briefly talk to. Catherine Lee Scott, of course, Roger Davis, David Selby was there, Lisa Richards was there, and Jim Storm was there, along with his wife, Valerie, and also Valerie's sister, Kaylin, who was a lovely person as well. And they were very friendly and welcoming to myself, and in particular, myself and Patrick McRae, who is the author of both the Dark Shadows Daybook and the Dark Shadows Daybook Unbound, and also a major contributor to the Collinsport yes, the Collinsport Historical Society website. And Patrick and I got a chance to really kind of sit down and talk to Jim Storm for probably an hour or so, and it might have been longer, but he had to go and do an interview. He was very gracious, and his wife, Valerie Pronio Storm, also incredibly gracious and generous with their time. So I wanted to shout out to them as an appreciation of that. Patrick was also my roommate. He generously offered up a room that he'd already secured. And so we kind of split that room up and enjoyed each other's company tremendously over a period of about 4 days. And I appreciate that. So shout out to Patrick McRae as well. Also, Don Schmidt, who was a friend of Patrick's and now considered a friend of mine, who was there as a fan as well. And some of the other people that I met included Ansel Faraj, who is the filmmaker that's used a great deal of Dark Shadows talent in his films over the years and continues to do so. And he was very pleasant and a nice man. He's a nice young man, yes. Some of the fans that I met included Catherine Gonzalez, and Bob Issel, who I've known long distance since the mid 1990s. And also Bob, along with Jeff Kenny, edited and did a lot of the composition work on the Our Shadowed Past book series, which there are now 2 of. So shout out to them. Guy Haynes, who is a longtime fan and a very nice man that I've had some dealings with in the past. I've bought some collectibles from him as well as corresponded with him a few times. Joe Flanagan from Philadelphia, long time fan, been to a whole bunch of the conventions as well. And Guy, thanks for all that music information. I've already purchased a couple of long playing records with some of that music on it. So thanks again. I'll let you know if I run across anything new on that front. Basically, for those of you who don't know, Guy has a short list of some of the songs that were used at the Blue Whale in the early episodes of the show before they went exclusively to Bob Cobert's music. So that was fun. Cara Tillitz and Kristen Pierce, Between the Shadows, had a great opportunity to meet and converse with them. We went out to a lovely Mediterranean restaurant with Patrick McRae, and these 2 lovely ladies accompanied us, and we certainly hope that we'll have a chance to meet and talk to you guys again. In the meantime, podcasting all the time. These 2 ladies do their show Between the Shadows. Highly recommend it. And of course, I got a chance to meet in person Penny Dreadful of the Terror at Collinwood podcast. She was lovely and effusive as she is on the show. Wonderful experience meeting her. Thank you, Penny. And again, I hope that we can all meet again at an event similar to this. There are fewer and far between as time goes by, but I'm certainly hoping that Jim Pearson and Catherine Lee Scott and others that are responsible for this sort of thing. Mary O'Leary, who I met, a lovely person, was also one of the primary organizers of the remembrance events that took place on July 5th and 6th. I hope that they're able to put together some other events as well for the fans and the actors so that they can all get together again. So, huge thank you to everybody and a huge hello to everybody. Thank you so much for making my experience incredibly positive. That was only my second event. I went to the '99 convention, which was held at the Marriott World Trade Center in New York City. So that's been a long time ago. That was 25 years in between events. So this one was a lot of fun. I got a chance to sit down and talk to a lot of people and just kind of hang out, and that was great. All right, so there's that out of the way, and now let's delve into some of the famous moments of the script from episode 522. And here we have the front piece of the entire script. The top says Dark Shadows Show number 522. That's the totality of shows. Underneath of that is the ABC number for the year, 127, and the DKR 68, which signifies the year of this particular Dark Shadows production. A VTR, videotape recording, Sunday, June 16th, 1968. Airtime, Tuesday, June 25th, 1968. The work call for the dry rehearsal would be Friday, June 14th, 1968, from 4 to 6:30 p.m. at the studio, second floor rehearsal hall. Producer Robert Costello, and the director has not yet been written in, and the writer is Sam Hall. The director for 522 would be the Dark Shadows stalwart Leela Swift. Cast: Barnabas Collins, Jonathan Frid, Roger Collins, Louis Edmonds, Willie Loomis, John Carlin, Joe Haskell, Joel Crothers, and Nicholas Blair, and they've written in his name because this is the first full-length script that he's a part of, Humbert Allen Estrado. And Grayson Hall is Dr. Hoffman. The sets are going to be the drawing room during the teaser in the foyer. The Act 1 is going to be the foyer at Collinwood. Act 2 is going to be the drawing room, the foyer, and Roger's room. Act 3 is the old house and an exterior window where we'll see Joe Haskell. Act 4, limbo picture area, limbo skeleton area in the basement, in the coffin room of the old house, and the interior cellar door of the old house. And on the bottom it says Dan Curtis Productions and Company, ABC TV 16, that's Studio 16 at 433 West 53rd Street. And the telephone number, which I'm sure doesn't work anymore, or it works for somebody else, so don't use it, is there below. The second front piece, which reiterates the show's 522, and it's happening on 6/25/68, reiterates the cast and the sets. It refers to permanent, and that is the Collinwood set, the Collinwood drawing room and foyer, and picture area and skeleton area are close-ups. Teaser, a recap of Nicholas Blair's arrival at Collinwood. He appears at the tail end of the episode 521, but this is his first full episode. Act 1, a continuation in which they must tell him that his sister, Cassandra, is missing, and he is surprisingly cool about it. Roger insists that he stay at Collinwood in hopes that she will return. Taking the picture, the two men exit upstairs. Act 2, Julia and Barnabas are in a sweat over Nicholas's appearance. What does it mean? Nicholas talks Roger into letting him hang the painting of Angelique in his room. That's sort of altered a bit in the actual final script. Act 3, Joe Haskell comes to the old house determined to find out everything he can about Adam from Willie. Willie tries to lie, and Joe is forced to use violence to get out the part of the truth Willie tells, that Adam was around the old house but left because he hates Barnabas. Finally, Act 4, Nicholas tries to get the picture to tell him where Cassandra is, what has happened to her. He has no luck. Nicholas is caught spooking around the old house by Willie. Nicholas zaps Willie, forces him to tell of the ghost who came to fight the witch. That would be Reverend Trask. Nicholas goes downstairs, sees the skeleton. Well, Mr. Trask, we meet again. Before we delve further into the script, here's the complete teaser of episode 522.
I haven't seen it in some time.
Well, that's what's so peculiar. Neither did I. And then this afternoon, I found it locked in a closet.
Something has happened to it.
Yes. The colors have faded dreadfully. Do you remember how vibrant they used to be, Julia?
Yes, it has faded, hasn't it? You can hardly see the portrait.
It's as if someone had left it out in the sun. No one has, of course. I can't understand why Cassandra would lock it away. Well, I'm going to take it into town and see if it can be restored. Vicky has every right to be unhappy over its present condition. Visitors at this hour?
I'll get it.
Thank you, Barnabas.
Perhaps it's the police.
With news.
Mr. Collins,
Yes.
I should have recognized you anywhere. You are Cassandra's husband.
Cassandra? No.
I am Roger Collins. Who are you?
Oh, Mr. Collins, what a pleasure. I've looked forward to this moment ever since I first heard of your marriage. I am Nicholas Blair, Cassandra's brother.
As a note, all of the changes I have marked with a blue typewritten passage or with crossouts of various lines. And our first alteration actually takes place in the fade-in with a voiceover. Night over Collinwood and two conspirators must find a missing portrait, a portrait which will tell whether or not the witch has died. And while one searches her room, another waits alone for the answer. Waits alone for the answer replaces distracts her innocent husband. Another minor change occurs near the bottom of page 3 when Barnabas refers to looking at the portrait that Roger is showing them that he's discovered locked in a closet by saying, "Something has happened to it," instead of saying, "Let me see that." This next scene, we're skipping ahead to Act 1, pages 10 through the middle of 13 of the script, in which Barnabas, Julia, and Roger question Nicholas Blair to try to get some more information. There's some significant changes here. But here's a selection from the original broadcast.
Where are you from, Mr. Blair?
I've just come from Martinique, Mr. Collins. Have you been there?
No, recently.
Really, Barnabas, I never knew you'd been there. You've never mentioned it.
I remember it very well.
Yes. It is a hard island to forget.
Do you live there now?
I wish I did. There's no place I call home, really. I'm, what is the expression, a citizen of the world. Oh, Mr. Collins, when you go to get Cassandra, don't tell her that I'm here. I do want to see the expression on her face when she sees me.
Well,
Let's begin our analysis of the script changes on page 10. About 2/3 of the way down the page, Nicholas's line, "I wish I did. There's no place I really call home. I'm, what's the expression, a citizen of the world." And the line cut is, "Actually, I've spent most of the winter in Alaska. I imagine Cassandra thinks I'm still there." So this line is cut, and it's continued on with normal lines into page 11. Here on page 11, Julia and Barnabas and Roger look at each other. They must tell him she is missing about Cassandra. Roger says, well, actually, Mr. Blair. And Julia's line, we have a surprise for you, too. And Roger's line, and not a pleasant one, is cut. And it's gone directly into Roger's, you see, Cassandra's not here. There is a note to make here, and that is that there are several what you would call paraphrases done by the actors throughout the script. That is something that's between memorization and actual performance and has nothing to do really with the conscious editing of the script. Continue on to the bottom of page 11. The cuts continue with Roger's line, curious as it may sound, and Nicholas's retort, it doesn't sound curious at all. And now moving along to page 12, a myriad of cuts, beginning at the top of the page with Roger's line, it does to me, to us. I'm frightfully embarrassed as what I must tell you. And then the following line, Cassandra has left, disappeared, is altered to Cassandra has disappeared. The conversation continues down to, I don't understand, Mr. Blair, mid-page. And Nicholas's line, do call me Nicholas, please, is cut. This is then continued with, we're frightfully worried that something could have happened to her. And the rest of Roger's line on this page is cut. You see, she left without a word. I'm speaking quite frankly, sir. And then Nicholas's lines, yes, you are, is also cut. Finally, this segment of cuts ends on the top of page 13 with a cutting of Roger's line, but I see no reason for pretense between us. And Nicholas's line, there is none at all, is also cut. Going directly to the police are looking for her, and a beat change there with Nicholas's concerns about the police being involved. And now another edited segment from the bottom of page 14 through a section of page 16 in which Nicholas turns the table on the interrogation and begins his own brand of interrogation about their feelings about Cassandra. Let's take a look at that clip, shall we?
Fellow, even Cassandra follows a pattern. This has happened before. She has felt hostility, and she has reacted to it in a typically feminine way. She has simply walked away from it. And she will walk back when she feels she is able to deal with whatever caused her to leave.
Well, you must stay with us, of course.
No, I couldn't.
So at the bottom of 14, Nicholas's line, a pattern, my dear fellow. Even Cassandra follows a pattern. And then in the actual broadcast, he continues on. But in the original script, at the top of page 15, Roger's line, I am aware that she does, she's human, is cut. And then Nicholas, yes, she is subject to all human frailties, there is no doubt about that. She has never had the ability to live with unspoken thoughts. She is extremely sensitive, as you know. And then he continues with the line, it has happened before, she has felt dislike, hostility, and then the line, whatever word one wishes to use has been cut. And then he continues on, and she has reacted in a feminine way, and so forth to the end of his line. And then Roger's line, I hesitate to think that anyone here would show her the kind of hostility has been cut. At the top of page 16, Nicholas's line, Mr. Collins, ellipses, and Roger's line, Roger, of course. Then down to Nicholas's line, you are speaking as a man. Women recognize hostility easier. It means more to them. It causes them more problems than it would you or me. She will be back. And then we're back into the actual broadcast line. Roger, you will stay with us, of course, until she is. And with this cut, the rest of Act 1 remains pristine. And now on to Act 2. First, the original broadcast version of the opening of Act 2.
Oh, we shall have no news of Cassandra tonight, I'm sure.
No, there'll be no news tonight.
I'll have the servants get your luggage from your car, and I'll show you to your room.
I am rather tired. I hope you will forgive me, Dr. Hoffman.
Of course, Mr. Blair.
Good night, Mr. Collins. We shall see each other again, I'm certain.
At least Angelique has no blood brother, but a brother spirit, a brother devil.
He's come to get her.
He knows where she is. There's no doubt about that.
Barnabas, what are we going to do? What if he finds the portrait?
Roger took it upstairs, didn't he?
And over the next few pages, pages 18 through 22 of Act 2, we're going to see some major cuts here. Beginning with page 18, where a huge chunk, as you can see here, has been cut, including Roger's line, "What do you mean that nothing has happened to her that cannot be undone?" And Nicholas's line, "Like most women, Cassandra needs love. Without it, she is dreadfully unhappy. But there is much love in this house, I am sure. She will come to recognize that in time." And Roger's line, "Yes, yes, she must." And then the beginning of the actual broadcast act, "We shall have no news tonight, I'm sure." "No, there'll be no news tonight." Skipping over page 19, our next cut occurs at the bottom of page 20, after Barnabas's line, "He knows what has happened to her, there's no doubt of that." And Julia's line, "That has to be why he is here." And Barnabas's line, "There is such evil in him," are cut and going directly to Julia's, "Barnabas, what are we going to do?" And now we see the entire page 21 of the script has been cut. It starts with Barnabas saying, "I don't know," in answer to Julia's, "Barnabas, what are we going to do?" on the previous page. And then Julia continues on, "He'll stay here. Who knows what he'll cause to happen?" And then Barnabas, "When you fight the devil, you do not fight one person, Julia. I have learned that. Yes, too well. Oh, I'm so tired of fighting. The day I met Angelique, so many years ago, yet I still remember the sun and her eyes. They seemed so innocent then. For 200 years she has deviled me. For 200 years I have fought her curse. And now, when for a moment I thought myself free, now I must fight him too. Oh, Julia." And Julia says, "Barnabas, poor Barnabas." And Barnabas says, "Don't call me that." Continues at the top of page 22 with Julia's response, "I'm sorry." And Barnabas continues, "I am not ready for your pity or anyone else's." Julia says, "I know that. I didn't mean it in the way it sounded." Barnabas, "If Blair gets that portrait," is where we pick up the scene with "if Blair gets that portrait." Now let's move on to the broadcast version of pages 23 through 26, which is Act 2, Scene 2, in which Nicholas and Roger are upstairs discussing the portrait.
Show you to your room. It's right down the hall. I think you'll find you'll be comfortable there.
I'm sure I will.
Oh, Mr. Blair. Mr. Blair,
Nicholas.
Nicholas, I hope that you have not been given the impression that any member of my family has been intentionally rude to your sister.
This portrait fascinates me. Such a shame it's faded. A crime, really.
Yes, I'm going to take it in town. There's a man who does some restoring.
I do hope he's good.
Well, he's not really all
Then
that
don't
good.
let him touch it. Would you let me try? I've done a great deal of restoration. A hobby of mine.
Whereas most of this scene, found on pages 23 through 26 in the script, have remained relatively pristine from script to performance, a few key changes were made. On page 23, Nicholas's line, "This room suits Cassandra very well," and Roger's line, "Yes, yes, it does actually, she's awfully fond of it," are cut, leaving Roger's line, "I'll just put this here and then show you your room." And then continuing on, "Mr. Blair, Nicholas, I do hope you somehow didn't get the impression," blah, blah, blah. Roger also has an additional line in the early part of this page. "I'll just put this here, then show you to your room. I think It's right down the hall. I think you'll be comfortable there. And Nicholas says, I'm sure I will. And then there is a small cut on the bottom of page 26 after Nicholas's line, I've done quite a bit of restoration, a hobby of mine. The line that's cut is, I've a feeling I could bring this alive very easily. And then Roger's line, oh, of course, please take it. It's interesting to note that there was a page 27 to this scene 2, act 2, and the conversation would have gone like this. Nicholas, you're a very trusting man. Roger, nonsense. You wouldn't want to try unless you knew what you were doing. Nicholas, how wise of you to recognize that. Yes, I shall have it as good as new in no time at all. And then the fade out. Act 3, Scene 3, which takes place between pages 28 and 35, features Joe Haskell and Willie Loomis. There are very few changes in this scene, actually, but there are some on this page, page 31. At the top of the page, Joe says, Willie, let me in or I'll break in, which is an additional line. And then Willie says, what do you want, Joe? And Joe says, to talk to you. Willie says, what do you got to talk to me about, huh? Let me in and you'll find out. Nothing's happened to Maggie, has it? You let me in, Willie. So those two let me in lines are reversed there. So it would go, what are you going to talk to me about, huh, Joe? You let me in, Willie. Nothing's happened to Maggie, has it? Well, let me in and you'll find out, which of course makes more sense and is a good edit in terms of logic. And here's that brief segment in broadcast.
What you want, Joe?
I want to talk to you.
What do you want to talk to me about, Joe, huh?
Let me in, Willie.
Hey, nothing's happened to Maggie, has it?
Let me in and you'll find out.
Maggie's all right, isn't she?
Yeah, sure, Willie. Maggie's fine.
The ending of Act 3, Scene 3, brings us to Act 4, Scene 1, in which Nicholas is speaking to the portrait of Angelique and asking her for clues as to her whereabouts so that he can resurrect her from the exorcism done by Trask. At the bottom of page 36, which is the beginning of Act 4, there is a note that says that the picture glows slightly to communicate ideas to Nicholas, but in fact, the tech staff, I guess, and the director decided that that was impractical, so they decided to use Angelique's signature music. So let's take a look at the broadcast result of that change.
Was it Barnabas? Was he the one who defeated you? Give me a sign that you still exist. Give me a sign. How shall I find you? Where shall I start? Here? In this house? Where? Where Barnabas lives?
The final segment of Act 4 and the show takes place between pages 37 and 45, which is the end page of the show. On page 39, as we see here, there are some slight changes. Nicholas has summoned Willie up to the entryway of the old house, and he says, "Didn't you hear me knock?" And Willie says, "What?" And the line that is cut in favor of what is, "You didn't knock." Then Nicholas says, "You're hard of hearing, aren't you?" Which of course doesn't make sense now, so that line is cut, and he goes on to say, "Will you tell Mr. Barnabas Collins that Nicholas Blair is here?" And the rest of the page works out untouched. Page 40 has another slight alteration. From the top, Willie says, "I don't know you." And Nicholas says, "Exactly. Now do as I say. Come here." And then the line, "You look more intelligent close up," is cut. And Willie's line, "I do," is cut. And Nicholas will therefore continue, as in broadcast, "I want you to show me through this house," and etc. On page 41, we have another slight alteration. As Nicholas is zapping Willie, he says, "Don't take your eyes from mine." And Willie's line, Why I don't understand is cut, and Nicholas's first section of the next line is also cut. It isn't necessary for you to understand anything. And the line picks up with, do you trust me yet, Willie? If you trust me completely, you can tell me your name and take your eyes away. And we skip ahead to page 43 here, where Nicholas's post-hypnotic interrogation of Willie is well underway, and Willie's talked about this ghost downstairs. And Nicholas says, you saw this ghost? Where? And Willie says, down there where the skeleton is. And then the following line is cut. Only it wasn't there when the ghost came, but the ghost went away and the skeleton came back. It scares me. And Nicholas's first part of his next line is also cut. Don't be frightened. He just says, is the skeleton there now? Willie says yes. And Nicholas starts for the cellar door, and Willie's line, wait, is cut. And at the top of page 44, Nicholas's response to Willie's wait is cut. No, you will walk into the room there. So Nicholas's line picks up with, you will sit in the chair, you will fall asleep, you will only awake when I leave this house. You will remember nothing. Start walking, Willie Loomis. Then towards the bottom of the page, we have a cut to the skeleton area in the basement, and Nicholas's line, well, Mr. Trask, or Reverend as you like to be called, so we meet again, is basically cut in favor of just, well, Reverend Trask. What have you done to Angelique? What? Don't you know that I will find out? And then the rest of the scene remains intact, save for some paraphrasing here and there, which of course you will note throughout the show. As I said before, again, as the actors sometimes struggle with the syntax of the lines, having only learned them that day. So, an understandable condition.
You there?
Me?
Yes, didn't you hear me knock?
What?
Come out here. Tell Mr. Barnabas Collins that Nicholas Blair is here.
I don't know you.
Exactly. Now you will do exactly as I say. Come here. I want you to show me through this house.
I can't do that. Barnabas didn't tell me anybody was coming.
Look at me.
Why?
Because I want you to. You're very good at following orders, aren't you?
Yeah, I guess.
Don't take your eyes away. Do you trust me yet, Willie? If you trust me completely, you can tell me your name and take your eyes away. But you must have heard some very interesting conversations about my sister, Cassandra. What were they? The truth, Willie.
Oh, she's a witch.
Stupid she is. Go on.
Well, they told the ghost that she was at Collinwood.
What ghost?
Downstairs, one downstairs. They said that the ghost was to go to Collinwood after her.
You saw this ghost?
Yeah.
Where?
Downstairs. In the basement. Where the skeleton is.
Is the skeleton there now?
Yeah.
Well, how about that, huh? This concludes episode 6 of the Collinsport After Dark podcast, brought to you live, well, maybe a little on tape, from the Chris Jennings Memorial Room at the Collinsport Inn. And also this week brought to you by this wonderful new product, Count Patofi's improved anti-werewolf spray, now with essence of hand. I don't think I want to know what that's all about. Anyway, thank you very much, Count Patofi, with your anti-werewolf spray. I have a feeling it might come in handy around here one of these days. Now, just as a matter of recap, the purpose of showing you this example of a script, in this case episode 522, which was shot in summer of 1968, was to give you a breakdown on how scripts were developed, uh, presented, edited, adjusted, and then finally made ready for broadcast through the work of the actors and the directors and the producers, the lighting designers, the technicians, and everybody else. The process is quite complex, actually. I think you can get a general idea of how complex it can be by what you just saw here. And as a reminder, it's probably a really good idea when you're looking at the script pages that I'm showing you to have it on a full-size screen. Otherwise, it's not going to be very easy to see those edits. So I apologize for that limitation, but I think most of you probably have at least laptops, and many of you may have desktops, and hopefully that'll be helpful to you. You should be able to clearly see the words and the edits that take place amongst some of them. Now, these edits oftentimes were for practical reasons, time. There might be some long-winded speech that is redundant that could be trimmed. There might be some leap of logic that the director decides, well, that's the audience isn't going to understand that, or it doesn't make any sense quite as well as it should. So as the writers are not perfect, as the actors are not perfect, as no one is, but everybody is striving for perfection in this, these kind of edits, cuts, and adjustments need to be made on a daily basis on a show like Dark Shadows, particularly with Dark Shadows being taped live, as it were. All of those adjustments need to be made in advance in order to make a smooth production day happen. So that's pretty much what we're dealing with a show like this. I hope that this was sort of an interesting internal foray for you. Some of what I'm doing here is a bit of conjecture, but it's based on a career that I've had in the entertainment business for a number of years. Some of the cuts may have been made the night before during the read-through. Some of them were made last minute because still going over time, or somebody noticed another a logical fallacy in the flow of the language or something else. So the actors were really put on it in terms of having to make these kind of adjustments last minute. And it is by no means a criticism when I refer to paraphrasing that goes on during some of these shows. It is actually a tribute to the actor's creativity, because to have to learn and unlearn sections of dialogue and then relearn sections of dialogue all within the space of maybe 24 hours is an incredible accomplishment for these actors. So my hat's off to them. I salute you, because as an actor myself, I understand how incredibly difficult and challenging a situation like that can be. So again, hats off to everybody that worked so hard to make this show come across as smooth and as entertaining and as atmospheric as they all were. So that's it. Sorry it's been a while since I've been here, but episode 6 is now in the can, and I hope you'll enjoy it. Take care, and until next time, stay inside after dark in Collinsport.